Hey there, my gorgeous friends. How are you? Welcome to the Holy Shed in a slightly different location, as the more discerning may see. We've been having a bit of a shuffle round in our house here in South London, and it's always exciting, isn't it? Moving things around, changing rooms. You have to get used to it, but it's good fun, and a lot of hard work. I mean, next time Pat wakes me up in the morning and says, "I've had an idea, Dave," I think the right policy will be to run. But no, seriously, it's great, and it just freshens things up, doesn't it, to move things around. And speaking of South London, this morning I gave a sermon in St Leonard's, our church in Streatham, on the subject of divine kindness. And if you'd like to listen to that, I will put a link up for it as soon as one becomes available. Now, I just need to say this right at the start, in case you don't last the course, which of course you will. But I'll be taking a break for the next couple of weeks, so no sheds for the next 2 Sundays. We're having a holiday, not least because our lovely daughter Jenny is marrying Tim next weekend in an Airbnb chateau, no less, in France. And so there'll be a whole bunch of us going over there, having some fun, and I'll be doing a little ceremony for them, and can't wait. And because of this, our son Paul is over from Australia, from Melbourne, for a couple of weeks. And so we got together this week around the table, the nuclear family, just the 5 of us. I can't tell you when this last happened, but it was really very exciting, such a treat. In fact, so much so, it turned into this. And we're looking forward to our time all together. But I will be back on the 11th of August. So I'm sure you'll get by without me, and I'll look forward to seeing you then. Now, as you will know by now, our current theme here in the Holy Shed is an improbable journey, tales of this here Bad Christian Vicar, or how I got from where I was to where I am now. And importantly, and more interestingly, what are the issues that I've had to process, struggle with, and deal with along the way on that journey. Well, I finished last time with a little juicy bit about an enormous breakup, a huge clash that I had with a fellow house church leader, Bryn Jones, his name, sadly no longer with us now, but a very, very impressive man in so many ways, an extraordinarily talented platform speaker with a flair for conveying his message in a very accessible, down-to-earth fashion, and a real trail-blazing leader, quite a man. And I enjoyed a close relationship with Bryn for around about a decade. We had fun together, but latterly the relationship came under pressure and broke down due to me feeling that we were all headed in the wrong direction, and him being completely unwilling to, take that seriously or consider that may well be the case. To me, something which had been born out of an amazing new spiritual energy, and which, in which we set aside the encumbrances of organized religion, was now recreating those encumbrances in a new and different form. In a bid to restore New Testament style churches and ministries, we were erecting new structures and hierarchies, arguably more rigid and restrictive than those that we had already abandoned. I mean, it's an all too familiar picture in church history. I could sense a new authoritarianism emerging that I really didn't like. Well-intentioned pastoral structures and arrangements and policies were becoming overbearing and manipulative, I felt, and I really could not bear it. It's a long story, but by the end of 1980, Bryn and I quite painfully parted company. He was frustrated by my constant questioning of things. I found him coercive and controlling. I mentioned last time this book here, Restoring the Kingdom, by Dr. Andrew Walker. It's an excellent book which documents the history of the house church movement, and documents that particular breakup between myself and Bryn. And one particular little bit that he wrote, I'll just put on my screen for me to read anyway. He said this as his analysis. He said, Dave Tomlinson is almost the opposite in personality to Bryn Jones. Bryn, to use psychological terminology, is the classic convergent thinker. He presses on regardless of opposition or setbacks, running a tight ship all the way. Dave is a divergent thinker. He's always rethinking his position, always seeing new angles and aspects to doctrines and practices, always learning and changing. He was the perfect foil and check to Bryn Jones, and Jones's incisiveness was the counterbalance to Tomlinson's caution. The attraction of opposites, however, so easily leads to opposition, and the same power that attracts becomes the power that repels. Well, I find Andrew's analysis of that whole episode very insightful. There's much more of it in the book. And, considering that he wrote this in 1988, I find it still a pretty accurate picture of me. And I think it helps to demonstrate the process of how I got from where I was to where I am now. It's tied up with a constant instinct that I feel to rethink, to question my assumptions and be open to new possibilities, new ideas. Anyway, following my split with Bryn, I felt inclined toward a parallel strand within the house church movement. So I joined forces. It doesn't matter if you know these people or not, but I joined forces with a guy called Gerald Coates, John Noble, and Peter Fenwick from Sheffield. And we joined together in the early 1980s to launch a large annual event. I think the event was first in 1983, called Festival, which was intended to carve out a new direction, to point the many new churches that we represented in a different direction. The other guys graciously allowed me to take the helm to set the direction, which was, roughly speaking, focused on how the kingdom of God might find expression in us as the church and in the wider culture. So, as I say, Festival began in 1983 and it ran through to 1988, 5 years. We enjoyed a good relationship together, me and the other guys. As a group, we were much more chilled and relaxed than the network that was more dominated by Bryn. But in the end, we too discovered that we were heading in different directions. It was as if we sort of passed at a certain point, but actually our trajectories were going in different ways. My approach to faith and theology, I think, was increasingly liberal and progressive, and that was one thing that created tensions, whereas some of the others were going in directions that I just felt, with my more liberal heart, I didn't want to go in. I've spoken before in the shed about me inviting Jonathan Porritt, then director of Friends of the Earth, to speak at Festival. It turned out that my colleagues and much of our constituency were not really ready in 1985 for my strong instinct to focus on the growing environmental crisis and to see this as a matter of deep Christian concern. I mean, not a lot of people were thinking about it all back then. And then the following year, I set a focus on the evils of apartheid and the campaign to free Nelson Mandela. I mean, all these things seem so kind of passé and obvious now, but, on the one hand, I was seen as flirting with paganism in the environmental movement, and on the other hand, supporting communism in the anti-apartheid campaign. And these things just became tensions that, pointed to the fact that we were really going in different directions. Like I say, nowadays, my stance on those issues is just plain obvious to most people. But back then, the attitudes that I contended with were all too prevalent within evangelicalism in general. I remember speaking about environmentalism at Spring Harvest a large evangelical gathering in 1989 and having someone stand up and shout at me in the middle of the session, asking me why on earth it mattered what happened to the world, what mattered what happened to the earth, because, as he said, it's all going to burn soon when the Lord returns. Well, I mean, this is the point, round about that time, at which we moved to London, as described in the last session here, to plant a multiracial church in Brixton. But by 1989, 1990, much of my attention was directed toward the growing numbers of people I met who were pretty much done with church altogether, and especially done with evangelical approaches to faith. And I just seemed to be picking these people up all over the place and having them come to me, to ask my perspectives and so on. And our own kids at that time were pretty disillusioned with church as we knew it at that particular time, along with some of their friends who hung out at our Clapham home. So Pat and I and a few friends decided to create something new, to create a space where those kind of people could meet and have the kind of honest conversations that they didn't find were possible in most churches. After a few months of gathering in the basement of our offices in Brixton, I always wanted a cavern club, and we had fun there. We had, as well as having these great conversations, we had some comedy gigs, we had some acoustic gigs and stuff. It's all hot and sweaty and probably very illegal in terms of health and safety, but we did have fun. But anyway, the unanimous decision was, when we needed to move from there, that we should shift to have the meetings in a pub. And we then decided to call ourselves Holy Joe's, which was really a piss take on ourselves, in case anyone takes us too seriously, we don't. Well, basically, for the next 10 years, we moved around several South London pubs, and every Tuesday evening hosted a gathering of those who were variously bored, disenchanted, angry, disappointed, or hurt by their experiences of church and Christianity, and they needed somewhere to get together and for all that to be vented and chewed over and discussed. I mean, we never had what you'd call services, but we offered space for honest expression where people could argue, doubt, and question without being put right at the end of the evening. Some of our regulars were pushy and hard to shut up. That was my job. I had to learn a whole new style of leadership in Holy Joe's, shifting away from being the directive sort of person at the front to being a facilitator, someone who held onto what sometimes felt like a sort of rumbling volcano. Others who came along needed teasing out. Some wanted a heady discussion. Others welcomed the chance to vent their spleen. Week in, week out, for 10 years, we wrestled with whatever it was about church or faith that got people's goat. And it was always, with passion, never without beer and laughter and irrelevant banter, and occasionally, a tear or three. Many hundreds of people passed through Holy Joe's, many hundreds, during those 10 years. Never more than, around 50 on a given night, because that's all the pub could hold. But yeah, hundreds of people passed through Holy Joe's. Some came for a few weeks to detox from the church, as one person put it. Others stayed for months or years. It became like a beacon of hope for misfitting spiritual travellers. And increasingly, it wasn't just people who were, dropouts from the church. It were people who'd never been to church who began to come along, who had some spiritual hunger or aspiration. But one person did tell me Holy Joe's was my last chance saloon before giving up on the whole damn thing. And then I found I didn't need to. So that's, it was a redemptive place, really. Tuesday nights in the Hope and Anchor pub and the Alexandra, the Black Bull, the Railway, and the Bag of Nails was almost like a kind of 12-step programme for religious fugitives. Our opening ritual at each evening was to go round the room and introduce ourselves. And I recall one man, the Joker, mischievously announcing, "Hello, my name is Edward. I'm a recovering Christian." I haven't been to a church service for 19 months. There's a lot of fun there, as well as a lot of serious stuff. As I said last time, the 90s was, for me, a crucial decade when I initiated an infamous church in a pub, wrote my first book, The Post-Evangelical, that still features on numerous college and university reading lists. I studied for a master's degree in biblical hermeneutics, where I thankfully discovered that my views were not as outlandish as people were telling me. And also, I was ordained in the Church of England, I look back on the 90s now as a period when all manner of experiences, questions, and struggles in my life suddenly made sense. It was an I love it when a plan comes together sort of time for me. Things just fell into place. I sort of felt I really know who I am. I know where I am. I know, what I'm trying to do and where I want to go. And so it was a very exciting decade. I find it incredible that next year will be the 30th anniversary of the publication of the Post-Evangelical, and even more incredible that it's still in print after 30 years and listed in the classics range of the publisher. I've never been a classic ever before. It was described by one critic, the book, as an event book, which a book which somehow catches a moment, expressed what lots of people were feeling, and also gave that feeling a name. Of course, you can't decide to just sit down and write an event book. You only find out afterwards. I thought I was writing a kind of pastoral / theological response to a phenomenon that I became aware of, which was the effects of 1990s postmodernity on disillusioned, especially evangelical Christians. And I wanted to offer a rationale for what was happening, the loss of faith in an all-encompassing narrative, the discrediting of institutions, the emergence of a more episodic understanding of truth, blah, 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 all those mouthful kind of things that came out of postmodernity. I tried to show how they were a frame around an awful lot that was going on in a seething disenchantment with religion, with Christianity in a lot of people. I had no idea how many people the book would reach or how affirming it would become to honest-hearted, disaffected Christians of all stripes right through to the present time. Within weeks of its publication, I was deluged with letters from around the world. It was just before emails took off and social media wasn't even a twinkle in a socialite eye. Very quickly, I knew what all of these letters were going to say before opening them. At last, someone has said this. Oh my goodness, I've been thinking these things for years, but wouldn't have dared say. Heck, there's a name for what I am. I'm a post-evangelical. When I saw Bishop Richard for the second time to explore, my possible future in the Church of England, which was in 1995 when I saw him, the book had just hit the shops. And so when I met him, the first thing he said to me was, I've just been in Dillon's, Dave, which was the old Waterstones. I've just been in Dillon's and saw shelves of your book. And he went on to say, it's very good. I would like all my evangelical clergy to read it. I doubt that they did, but, that was good. But I have to say that of all the letters and things that I got in response to the post-evangelical, my favourite one was this, and I have to read this because it's very particular. It was from a couple actually, but the man said, a year ago, I was in a state of rage bordering on church burning. I felt like Winston having escaped from Big Brother or the Savage in Brave New World and wanted revenge for all those mind-fucking sermons, miserable worm guilt feelings and the ludicrous newspeak that had been my life for 20 years. There was no church I could go into without having a severe reaction and either walking out or putting my fingers in my ears and going la, 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 which my wife found embarrassing and looked like demonization to those who were so wise about these things. A copy of your book and a visit to Greenbelt were the first indications that I was not entirely alone. I'm now completely free from that stifling kind of religion that slowly strangles the life out of you, and from the susceptibility to completely flee reality. My spirituality is now my own, not an undigested mixture introjected from 1,000 grim sermons and silly books. I can get in touch with the strength of it deep inside. I can read the words of Jesus, but their meaning is now changed like rain into snowflakes. My mind is now open and not tight shut, and I feel an almost primitive sense of freedom and energy. Wow, I mean, definitely. I don't know if he has written any books, but he should do. So anyway, guys, I could go on with this. I could go on, but I think you get the hang of my story. It's been at times wildly exciting, severely disorientating, painful, especially at the loss of friends I thought were there for life, and deeply, deeply satisfying and, well, freaking amazing, really. It's strange that after searching down many roads for expressions of faith and church that are authentic and even radical, here I am now, an ordained priest in the most institutional of churches, which is variously seen as stodgy, frustrating, archaic, homophobic, boring, and stuck in its own big pile of mud. But then, this is part of what my journey shows, you see, guys. There is no perfect church. And sometimes when you try to start again, you end up with something at least as bad or even worse. My 19 years as a parish priest right through the early 2000s gave me the most fruitful years of my ministry up until that point. The inroads that this weird institution of the Church of England gave me into the lives of ordinary non-church going North Londoners was blinking amazing, and I'm forever grateful that the Church of England gave me that opportunity. I saw lives changed. I saw people, coming into the church and wanting to be a part of what was happening without any invitation to do so whatsoever. I mean, does the Church of England have a future? I have no idea. Do any traditional forms of church have a longer term future? Well, the graphs and the statistics are not exactly encouraging. And we know that from the census, less than half of the population now identify as even nominal Christians. The whole thing is changing. Regular church attendance is, right down there at the bottom of the scale. But this, I'm sure of, I'm really sure of, that the kingdom or the realm of God definitely has a future. I mean, perhaps we'll need completely different forms of church community going forward. I think we will. The thing is, Jesus never came to establish a club of people defined by correct theological and ethical opinions over against all the other wrong ones out there. That's not what Jesus was about at all. He came to establish a new reality in people's lives, a fresh sense of the presence and the realm of God characterized by radical love and kindness, by justice, by peace, by reconciliation. That's what Jesus came to do, not start churches. They are what they are, but that's not what Jesus came to do. He came to bring us this realm of God, this new reality, this consciousness shift. Churches aspire in various ways to be the agency of God's kingdom. And over and over and over again, they fail miserably. So let's stop looking for a perfect church, okay? Work with the broken vessels that we have, but above all, seek first the kingdom of God. My story is a story, of looking for something new and better. And in the end, I found that actually wasn't the right thing to be out there looking for. It's about who we are as individuals, as communities in the world. Meanwhile, me and Pat are so grateful for our lovely church community in Streatham, led by our dear friend Anna and her husband Arthur. We're a wonderful bunch of South Londoners of different ethnicities, colours, sexualities, genders, personalities, blah, 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 try to discover what God's kingdom looks like in a local community. St. Leonard's isn't perfect at all, but hey, I just hope that you can find somewhere to hang out with fellow travellers. But if not, hey guys, you belong here with this bunch of bad Christians. And, you are very, very welcome to be part of this journey that we're on, that strangely began in COVID without any intention. And yet, here it is. So I'm going to finish with a prayer, which is nothing to do with what I've been saying, but it's a litany for summer days, which I think we're all hoping for. For warm days in the summer, t-shirts and ice cream. For laughter in the open air, a time to let off steam. For swifts and swallows home again, cool paths through the wood. For deck chairs, lounging on the beach, then fish and chips, so good. For Barbies in the garden, time to joke and clown. For sharing stories with our mates until the sun goes down. For buoyant hope which summer brings, our inner world renewed, we bring to you, Creator God, our deepest gratitude. Amen. Amen. Well, if you have anything handy at the moment, I've got a Coke here, but if you've got a glass of wine or a whiskey or a cup of tea or whatever, I invite you to take your drink now and join me in a toast to journeys, to adventures of the spirit as well as of the body, a toast to finding out who we are and learning to love ourselves, a toast to our world with all its pain and struggles. May we learn to be the change we wish to be in the world. To life, L'chaim. Well, there it is. As usual, if you like what I'm doing here in the shed, you can support us. You can buy us a coffee. You just need to follow the link on your screen now. And we are deeply grateful for all the contributions of support and encouragement that we receive from you. So important to us. Thank you more than I can say. And there we are, I think. Don't forget about the retreats that I'm leading in September, the two of them. There you can find information on my Facebook page about them. I'm very excited to be at a retreat up in Scargill, again in Yorkshire. Beautiful location. I love Yorkshire. I love Scargill. And I'm talking about a Bad Christian's Guide to Prayer up there. And then at Amadown, I'm doing a seminar there, or a retreat there, around the subject of how to read the Bible and still be a Christian. Details, as I say, on Facebook. And that's about it. I hope you have a great couple of weeks. I'm certainly looking forward to my next 2 weeks. And I look forward to seeing you again on the 11th of August. And we'll see where we go to from there. This morning in church, I talked about divine kindness. And I'm going to finish with a video by the Empty Hands people, which is all about kindness. So, you look after yourselves. Have a great couple of weeks. Be kind to yourselves. Be kind to the world. And I'll see you soon. Bye.
Well, my heart starts sinking and I'm thinking, what's the reason why we holding back from being kind? What's the disease? But then I sense we are fine. It'll all happen one small step at a time. When the world is full of violence and it needs a little kindness, I just sit and pray in silence, and God shows me the signs. Open my eyes, realize we are fine. One small act at a time. Last night I'm walking home and the homeless man says hello with a smile to let me know that he's got a lot of hope. He says, have faith, young man, we are fine. The world is kind. One small act at a time. Small acts we do together, even though maybe alone, changes the world for the better so we can call it home. And this is life as we know, when our hearts are aligned, the magic that unfolds, one small act at a time. Throw your hearts up, let it fly high, let your love for all the world spread through the sky. Let it drop down, let it all go, spreading kindness to every single living soul. Can you see your love for me shining through? Cause what you see in me, I can see in you. And soon enough, you and me will be out of time, and kindness will be all we can leave behind. Yeah, feeling grateful today. Never thought this day would come where I would feel it and say that each and every one of us has paved the way doing good, and now we're all just moving up. When I'm kind to you, you pay it forward. This is how we build trust. Never had faith, but now I'm seeing you eye to eye. Wanna gift you my life, wanna spread love before I die. Thank you, God, for finally letting me realize when I serve man, I'm really serving you in disguise. Smiles everywhere, cause now everybody's got the bug. Ain't no life without the love. If it is, it ain't no fun. What we gonna do now? Just grab a friend and give a hug. Spread it out real wide so everyone can be touched. Throw your hearts up, let it fly high, let your love for all the world spread through the sky. Let it drop down, let it all go, spreading kindness to every single living soul. Can you see your love for me shining through? Cause what you see in me, I can see in you. And soon enough, you and me will be out of time, and kindness will be all we can leave behind. Is all we can leave behind. Behind. When all is said and done, kindness is all we can leave behind. Throw your hearts up, let it fly high, let your love for all the world spread through the skies. Let it drop down, let it all go, spreading kindness to every single living soul. Can you see your love for me shining through? Cause what you see in me, I can see in you. And soon enough, you and me will be out of time, and kindness will be all we can leave behind.